I'm 5 minutes early because I want to see if anybody can even hear me this time through this. So somebody let me know if you can hear me. Anybody there? Can you hear me? Yay, thank you very much, Tanya. I don't know why I've had so much problems with doing Facebook Live with all the different things I have with my phone or my iPad, and this time I'm using my laptop. Hello. So, all right, I'm doing this one in our gossip group. So, you can ask me anything about the case or the family, and I'll answer your questions. I know it's all just silence right now, waiting. We've got 2 minutes till scheduled showtime. Well, I guess what I'm going to address while waiting for any questions is the latest development I just had, is Barb in one of her fan groups. I don't know which one it was in, if it was her old Brendan group or the new one she just made, actually admitted that she's got the shirt money that I gave her 2 years ago. I'm just seeing Megan's comment right now saying there's a bit of talk of Ryan Hilgas being spoken to recently. Do I know anything about it? No, I don't know anything about it. I know it's been something people have always suspected, that Ryan's going to come forward, that Ryan will break, especially after Scott Blodorn had said something previously about him. But I don't know. In my phone calls with Steven, he has told me that other people have come forward. He hasn't told me who, and I don't ask because phone calls are recorded, so I don't want whoever listens to his phone conversations to have access to that information. So I don't know if Ryan Hilgas has come forward. It would be nice if he did, because in my opinion, I think Ryan Hilgas planted the RV at the salvage yard for law enforcement. So it would be nice if he went and got immunity for his role in that, and did admit that the cops asked him to put the car there. Thank you, Megan. All right, so while we're waiting for the screenshots she's going to post, back to the shirt thing. So 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I organized a rally at the Manitowoc Courthouse that was going to be in June. And in doing that, my boyfriend owns a print shop, and we had made a rally shirt because for that rally, it was also the Worldwide Rally Day. So if you ever see anything on the Worldwide Rally, my boyfriend made the logo for that and made the shirts for that. And then we also made a Brendan shirt. There were 2 different Brendan shirts, an orange shirt and a green shirt. And one shirt the money was going to Brendan directly. And then one shirt, the money was going to go to his lawyers for his legal defense. And so the money going to Brendan went to his mom's GoFundMe. And then the money that was going to the lawyers, and the shirts were sold over like 2 months, 2 or 3 months. So there wasn't a whole lot of money that came in, to be perfectly honest. And so the money that went to Barb, because all money came in through my boyfriend's PayPal. And so each month he would transfer the money that came into him from for the Brendan shirt. He transferred it to Barb's PayPal, and then he would post each month, here's the money that came in for that in the money he sent to Barb's PayPal. So there was the accounting for all of that. And so I just held on to all the money that was coming in from the lawyer shirt, because as I said, it wasn't all that much money over, each month. So when the sale was done, it was $300 in change, $390, some, I can't remember. So I just rounded it up to 400. And so I contacted Stephen Drizzen, and and that's one of Brendan's lawyers. And I asked him how I should get the money to them, if they had something online to donate money, to send the money, if it needs to be mailed in by a paper check, because I know there's times you need to do it that way in writing. And he told me, excuse me, he didn't care about the money because it was only the $400. So, and I have that in writing because we did that by email. So then I had gone up to Barb's house and this was back when I was a moderator for Barb's fan group. And so we were doing a Facebook Live event, and I was moderating it. So it was Barb and Scott and Pete Dassey. And then it was Amy, who was the family spokesperson at the time and the admin of the Brendan page. And then Amy's daughter was there as well. And when I first got there, I handed Barb $400 in cash for, and that was the lawyer portion of the shirt money. And I had even joked there saying, maybe I should do this on camera so everybody knows that I actually gave you this money. And like I said, I was joking. I thought this was, I thought Barb was my friend, and, I didn't have any reason not to trust her. And I had been giving her a bunch of money leading up to it. And I made a whole bunch of shirts for her and the rest of her family that they never paid me for. And then when things went bad between Amy and I and Barb and Scott posted that I stole shirt money, which is really funny too, because like I said, they have shirts that I made that they never paid me for. And then Scott had also asked me for a favor, that Barb's birthday had been coming up, and would I make a special shirt about Brendan for Barb, for him to give her for her birthday, and for me to give it to him directly, and not to let Barb know about it. And so even after Scott had kicked me out of Brendan's group and made a post that I stole money, I still mailed him that shirt to give to Barb for her birthday. And yet he was accusing me of stealing money. And then I had, sorry, I'm a twitchy person. I never sit still. I had Carla and all of Carla's little minions that attacked me for the last 2 years, accusing me of stealing money. Lisa Setkowski was the worst of them. She contacted my local police department. She sent a huge file to my police department of everything she's compiling, claiming I stole this money to the police department. And she contacted I live in Illinois, so she contacted the Illinois Attorney General's office to file a complaint for me for stealing this money. And so then my local police department called me. I had to go in and talk to my police department. I called Stephen Drizzen because I used to talk to Drizzen all the time. I have his cell phone number. I called him and told him about it. And I gave his cell phone number to my local police department for them to call him. The police department asked me to compile everything. So now I had to do my own file, like Lisa did on me, on Lisa, of she did most of this on Twitter, of her just bashing the shit out of me, claiming I stole this money and I'm this and I'm that. So I had to put that all together, give that back to my police department. For the police department to finally, after investigating it all, they said I did nothing wrong, no money was stolen, and Lisa was actually told that she needed to stop posting that because now she was the one harassing me. And of course, it didn't stop her. She still did it, and she probably still does it to this day. But shock upon all shocks, and the screenshot is posted in this gossip group. Barb last night, for whatever reason, posted that I did give her the money, and she claims it's sitting in a safe. So crazy. I'm hoping that'll put it all to rest. That I didn't steal any freaking money, and that Barb has it. So that's one gossip thing. Let me scroll back up here to Tanya saying, are the full interviews reports on the new investigation available anywhere? I've seen small portions of some of them, but do you know if we can view them all anywhere? The only thing that we have posted is Anytime Zellner files. So we have that posted in here. We also have it on Stephen Avery Project, both the page and the group. And so that's all there is so like the filing she just did a week or so ago, and the 30 exhibits, and then she filed in October. And so that's all in there too. Chris says, why such discord among all the supporters? It seems there are now cliques. Just wondering why. Chris, it's because Barb and Carla, basically, they want supporters, or what they call supporters. I refer to them as fans. So, and Carla especially seems to think that she runs the show, and you need to do what Carla wants or else. So that's where Stephen Avery Project and now this gossip group comes into play, that this is for people who truly support them, not the family, because that's the thing to remember too. Any group that Carla or Barb has, they are a support page for the family, meaning Carla and Barb. They're not support pages for Brendan or Stephen, because how can you be a support page for Stephen and then not allow people to talk about the filing on Friday, or last Friday? So they don't like people to have their own thoughts on the case. And if you don't fall in line with Barb and Carla, you are then an enemy, and their rabid fans come after you. So that's it. And you can be a supporter of Stephen and Brendan and not have anything to do with Barb or Carla. And that's why we exist. Angie says, seems like all her so-called supporters would realize how crazy these people truly are and stop having anything to do with them. And for God's sake, stop giving that wench money. And hi, Jenny, that just came on. Barb, especially, has supporters give her gas cards. She gets gifts. Amy, I don't know if Amy's on here. But Amy and Barb were super close. They were, like sisters. And so Amy would spend at least one weekend a month at Barb's house. And so Amy knows a lot of what goes on there with stuff supporters send Barb. And it's something that always upsets Stephen, because Stephen is of the thinking that these people are all free. So if they're so desperate for money, get a job. And if they have a job and it's not paying their bills or, enough, then get another job. So he thinks any money that comes in, if people want to support anybody, it should be his parents, Alan and Dolores. They are retired and limited income. So, and Alan Dolores go and visit Stephen all the time. So if anybody's going to get gas cards, it should be them. Let me scroll back up and see what I missed here. Carla is not on Stephen's visitors list. Stephen doesn't even talk to her. And most of the time when Carla posts that she talked to Stephen, she's lying. Stephen hasn't talked to her in a long time. And I know she likes to try and post a screenshot of like claiming this was her caller ID to prove that Stephen called or something like that. Stephen doesn't talk to her and she's not on the list. So, let me see. Didn't Barb and Amy get matching tattoos back when they were close? Well, here. Let me show you. Ready? I don't know if I'll be able to do this, but let me try and stand up on my chair. Can you see? There's the matching tattoo. See? I have it as well. So Amy and Barb got the tattoo together. When Barb was visiting Amy's house, and I got mine here. So the three of us all have the same tattoo. Go figure. The thing that fires me up a lot is that everyone had this prejudice because Stephen was in prison for 18 years. But what they seem to forget was that he was innocent. I agree, Tony. So many people will use that against Stephen. Angie, I always wondered how that worked. The parents, what do they think about Barb and Scott, the crap they have been doing? Barb I don't think she has ever had a good relationship with her parents. I don't think, it's so sad to say. And the Alan Dolores are upset with Barb because of this time she'll say he's guilty. This time she flips back and forth. So whether or not Barb is their daughter, they don't like anybody saying that Stephen is guilty. So it's not a good relationship. Chris, no, nobody knows when the next season of Making a Murderer is coming out. Just like last year, they have said again that it'll be out by the end of the year. So I think it's just hard because so much keeps developing in the case that they don't know what to cover and where to stop, or, you know, will they get a third installment to keep going, you know, since there's just so much stuff. Does any of the family still live on the yard? Yes. Chuck bought the trailer that Barb was living in at back during that time. So Chuck lives there. And then Dolores has the trailer that's down closer to the office. Al stays up in Crivets. He's there like Thursday through Tuesday. And he comes back into the salvage yard a couple days a week. But being up north in Crivets is where Al likes to be. So, does Scott get along with Barb's parents? And does Bobby have a good relationship with his grandparents? Al and Dolores hate Scott. The whole family hates Scott. I don't know a single person in the family that likes Scott. And Scott hates all of them. Bobby, I have no idea about. Any of the times that I visited, Bobby was not around and not mentioned. If Amy comes on here at any point, Amy has met Bobby when she's been up there, so maybe she could talk on that. But I have no idea if he has any relationship whatsoever with his grandparents. Why does it appear the state has reopened an investigation, and why is Detering back out of retirement? Sorry, I'm on my phone. No time for spelling. This is internet, and I'm not grammar police, so don't worry about your spelling at all. I don't know. It's very curious on why, and also why did Barb and Scott talk to the state but they won't talk to Zellner? So I find that really curious on why you would continue to help the people that put your son in prison, but you won't talk to the only person that will get him back out. So some people have speculated that Barb and Scott are going to make up a new lie of some kind of solid proof that they'll claim is solid proof of Stephen doing it to, you know, try and get Scott off the hook. So I have no idea. What all did Barb say to you when she texted you last weekend? Jenny, that wasn't last weekend. That was a while ago. I don't know, while I'm sitting here, maybe I can pull up on my phone. When was the last time Barb texted me? It was a while ago. Still scrolling to try and find her. So, but yeah, that's an old screenshot that you're talking about. When Barb called me, it was after I had made a post ripping on her post celebrating their anniversary. So last time she texted me was December 17th. Okay, so, and then I don't know if you can even see this on here, because on my side it's just showing a glare. So she had called me and I didn't answer it because I obviously don't trust Barb because of the whole shirt thing. So I wanted to make sure anything going back and forth with her would be in writing. So I texted her and said, "You called me?" And she said, "Yes, I did. Please take that down." And I said, "What?" And she said, "You know what you posted." And I said, "You know what you have done to me too." And she said, "I haven't said anything about you in over a year, so why are you starting up again? And how did you get it?" Because see, that's what she's always concerned about, is we get screenshots from anything anybody says anywhere, whether or not it's in Barb's group or Carla's group, or, you know, Carla's multitude of groups, her Birches and Barstards, or Innocence Guilty, and all of it. We get screenshots everywhere, just like they get screenshots of all these groups. They've got somebody in here in the gossip group, you know. So, but Barb always wants to know who it is that sends us stuff so she can punish them. And I said, "Again, I have never stopped. You and Scott have treated me horribly. The things Scott posted about me has caused me to be attacked from years, from people saying I stole money I gave you. You do nothing and let it happen. And she said, I never said that. Well, happy New Year to you. And I said, no, you never said that, but you let Scott do that when he was right there when I handed you the $400 in cash. I did nothing to deserve the way I was treated by you. I support your son. I believe in his innocence, same as I believe in Stephen. You make it all about you. They're in prison while you're out hunting and enjoying your life with Scott. You can't stop me from supporting Stephen and Brendan. And then she said, I do support them. Why are you saying I don't? What am I supposed to do? Stop my life and do nothing? Would that make everybody happy? You know, if you had a heart, you wouldn't do this to me and you would be trying to help. Put the petition up for me. So the petition she's talking about is the Barbara Tadek juvenile interrogation protection law. That actually was started by me. Because I work with Injustice Anywhere. Injustice Anywhere is who started the Facebook page Free Brendan, which I'm the admin of. And so if you ever go to Free Brendan, any post that's made on there, I do it. Nobody from Injustice Anywhere does anything. I run that page myself. And somebody else had done a petition that had called it the Brendan Dassey law. And she's a total flake. And we originally had helped her with it. We got her to help let us help her because Injustice Anywhere has done petitions for other wrongfully accused people. And they have lawyers on their board to do the wording and all that. And so we had helped change the wording on that because the original girl is, it was a train wreck. And then once Carla went after me, she had that person cut us off from the petition. So we had no access to it. So then we started a new one and we had called that one the Barbara Tadek because you couldn't call it Brendan Dassey because there's already now a petition with that name on there. And so I consulted with Stephen's attorneys, Laura Nyrider and Stephen Drizzen, for what this bill should actually include. So it was Laura who told me on the phone that because originally we were making this law be that juveniles could not be interrogated without a parent or an attorney present. And Laura is the one that told me it should only be an attorney, not a parent, because a parent doesn't know the law and wouldn't necessarily be the best advocate, which, as I'm saying that now, it now makes even more sense because, you know, Barb let Brendan be interrogated while she sat outside. So she's really not the best person to be in the room or be on this petition. So it's really funny that then Barb was asking me to plug the petition again for her. And so I said, why would I help you? You let people think I'm a thief when you know it's not true. I did a lot for you and your family, including that petition. You wouldn't have it if not for me. Then Carla locked us out of it. And then she said, Bruce has all that info, not Carla. Bruce is Injustice Anywhere. So my partner that I deal with. And so Bruce is the one that set up the second petition. And she said, I wish you would stop blaming Carla for everything and the family. And I said, ha, 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 really? And then she sent me a screenshot of Carla talking with Bruce, apparently. Oh, and so Bruce, and so in that screenshot, it's Bruce saying the petition is updated, and Carla saying, thank you very much, dear. I was talking to Barb earlier, and she was wondering if you would be willing to share login info with her. That is up to you, and think about it, if anything. And Bruce said, I would do that, but the petition is on our Injustice Anywhere account, and it is attached to all of our other petitions. I will be happy to update anything she likes. She has full control. Just let me know anytime she needs and anything needs updating. And then Carla said, okay, I will talk to her and let you know tomorrow. Thank you again. And so then I responded with, duh, I know that. You people think I don't talk to Bruce. I mean your defense of Carla. That's adorable. And then that's the end of it. So That's of that last one. All right, let me scroll up for what came in while I was reading all that stuff. She seems like a bully, bossing people around. Absolutely. Brandy says, I have a feeling the state is just going through the motions of a real investigation. They will probably decide that the original investigation was perfectly okay, and the guys will continue to sit in prison for a murder they didn't commit. All right. Rhonda loves the screenshots. Sean, you, Carla, and Barb exchanged Christmas cards. Yeah, funny. Have you seen The Staircase on Netflix? And if so, did you enjoy it? I watched it when it was originally out. I can't remember what platform it was on. And then I went to watch it. I started it on Netflix and then stopped it because I couldn't take it. I'm probably one of the few people that I actually think the husband is guilty. And The Staircase takes the side of trying to show that he's not guilty. So I couldn't tolerate watching it a second time. Jenny, everything Carla does boils my blood. She's nothing but white trash. She only cares about herself. Exactly. Who stood by Stephen for those 18 years? How many come out of the woodwork once they knew about the settlement? Exactly, Tammy. Stephen's parents and Barb. Barb did go visit Stephen before making a murder and during the first time. Carla was only around when there were cameras. So Carla will say she was there the whole time, but she was not. She came for cameras. And when you look at Stephen's visitors list, you see that Carla didn't go visit him until Christmas Eve after making a murder was a success. And that's when she hopped on the Stephen thing. She didn't have anything to do with him prior to that. Can I share my opinion on who I think murdered Teresa? If not, I get it, but it's just an opinion, so no legal repercussions. I express this opinion all the time. Due to what Zellner files, in reading all of that stuff, I believe it is Scott and Bobby. I think Bobby is a sick deviant, and he knew Teresa was coming there, and that he followed her and either got her to stop, or somebody has reported somewhere that they had seen Teresa on the side of the road taking pictures of a cow. So he caught her when she was taking a picture of a cow, using the premise of a hustle shot that he wanted to sell his blazer and to get her to take a picture of the blazer. I think that he then made either some kind of sexual comment to her, or tried to touch her or something, and she brushed him off, and then he clobbered her upside the head and knocked her out, and then threw her in the back of her vehicle. And that's where you have the blood in the back of the RAV4 that's got the hair pattern in it. And I think that Scott is either he helped the whole time, or Scott then helped after the fact that Teresa was brought to his work at the aluminum foundry, where they are the whatever you call it, the foundry, and threw her in the smelter. So I believe it is Bobby and Scott. I'm scrolling back. Yay, Chris, Staircase State dude is guilty. Good. Usually I hear everybody say he's innocent, and I think it's the owl, and it's so not the owl, and that drives me crazy. Have I ever visited Stephen or Brendan? Let me give my... Sorry. No. Stephen, when I first started talking to him, when we took over Stephen Avery project, he said because he's always so positive that he's getting out right around the corner. He said it would take longer to process to get me added to his visitors list. and that he would be out before then. He said the last time he talked to me about it, he said that if I were to be added to his visitors list, the papers would just show up in the mail. So so I've never visited Stephen. Brendan, I went with Amy. Amy was on his visitors list, and everyone and her whole family was on the visitors list. And Amy would come down to my house. She lives in Michigan, so she would come to my house and then go, because I actually live closer to Brendan's prison from Illinois than Barb and Scott do. So it's a quicker trip for Amy to stay with me and go to Brendan's prison than it is to go to Barb's. So I went with Amy and her daughter Jessica when they were going to visit Brendan once, and I just sat in the car while they were in there. And this was back during the time when I used to talk to Brendan on the phone. So Brendan knew I was going and that I was going to sit in the car. And so he had asked me, what am I going to do while they're inside for, all that time? And I said, well, I'll have my phone, so I'll be online. And I said, I'll nap. And I said, or I'll go for a walk, because, I mean, as you can see right now from my millions of chins here, I'm clearly not in shape anymore. But at that point, I was trying to exercise and such. And so I said, maybe I'll go for a walk. And he's like, oh, well, if you get out by the prison, the inmates will whistle at you, and it just was kind of sweet. And then when Amy came back out after the visit, she brought me this little bag of chili Fritos. And she said it was from Brendan. Brendan wanted her to bring those to me because he said I was probably really hungry. So, again, he's a sweet kid. And I was being added to the visitors list. Barb had told me on a Friday that I was being added to the list. And then that following Monday, Scott had kicked me out of the group, and now they all hated me. So, no, I have never visited them. I've never actually visited anybody in prison. I've never been in prison, never been inside of prison. I'm actually going for the first time next week because I advocate for two other of Kathleen Zellner's cases here in Illinois. One is Kent Pellegrini, and I admin his Facebook page, Justice for Kent. And so Kent calls me every so often, and he's added me to his visitors list and wants me to come. So I told him I would come after Kathleen had filed for both Stephen and because she was filing for Stephen in another case that I advocate for, Melissa Kaluzinski. So those were both within a week of one another. So, and she's filing for Kent at the end of this month sometime. So I told Kent I would come visit him after those filings were done so I could fill him in completely on what's going on in both of those cases and where they're at. So I'm going one day next week. I just now have to decide which day I'm going because he wants notice because he works in the garden at the prison. So he wants to make sure he's not at work for when I come down there. And then I'm being, I have to look at that. All right, so scrolling back up for, are you not worried about slander? No, slander is something has to be not true. And I say what is true. So, and also I know how hard it is to get somebody on slander because Carla and all of her people have been slandering me for years now. And I've consulted with multiple attorneys. And what it would end up costing me isn't worth it to go after them because I would have to pay 4 people to do that. And I know the truth. And as I always say, I have to care about the person to care about what their opinion is of me. So, yeah. So no, I'm not worried about slander at all because I speak the truth. So if somebody wants to try and sue me for slander or defamation, go for it. The ones coming out of the woodwork now to support the guys. Do you think it's money motivated, wanting to cash in on Steve's due settlement? Chris, who are you talking about coming out of the woodwork? Are you referring to the new Steven group that just started, the one that's called Truth Wins, or whatever? I never remember the name of it. If that's the one you're referring to, that's Sandra Greenman. And then it's also Shaz. Those two women support Steven. Sandra has been there longer than anybody in Steven's family other than his parents. She's there before cameras. She's, so Sandra does this for Steven. Shaz is doing this for Steven. Both of those women talk to him. And I had a long conversation with Shaz on the phone the other day because I gave her the heads up because somebody had given me the heads up that Carla was trying to manipulate her way into something else. And I was sent the screenshot on that. So I wanted Shaz to have the heads up on that. The other people that are running that group, they have Lisa Zakowski on there. That girl is certifiable. And same thing with Carol Davis. So Carol Davis, I believe, does care about Steven. She just hates me due to believing everything that Carla has said about me. And Lisa is certifiable. She's nuts. And she has said before that Steven is guilty. So I really don't think she should be any part of a group that's supposed to be supporting Steven. And after everything that woman accused me of, yeah, she can go fuck herself. Ashley, do you think it's possible to do another test on the EMDT in the blood sample? A test to see how much blood it takes for EMDT to show up in a test. Maybe it takes more for the test to sense it. I know that Zellner has done a whole bunch of different tests with blood and recreating the actual blood sample. I believe they said during Making a Murderer that it was all used up, that they weren't able to do anything with that, but I don't know. But I do know that Zellner's done a whole bunch of stuff with the blood. Chris, no way, Owl. No, yep. I'm with you on there. No, Owl. He did it. No. Sorry if this has already been asked. When you were friends with Barb and you'd see her in the family, if you did you ever get any weird vibe or feel like they know more than what you knew of the cases? The only family that I met on the Dassey side is I met Pete Dassey while I was at Barb and Scott's house, and that Brian Dassey came over with one of his kids for a little bit. I've never met Bobby. I never met Blaine. And then I've never met Earl. I met Dolores, and then I met Chuck. Chuck was really nice to me when I met him, invited me inside the trailer. So I went in the trailer that Barb had lived in at the time because Chuck really loves his dogs and he had new puppies. And so I got to go in and see his new Chihuahua puppies. And Chuck was really open to me until things went bad with Carla. And then Chuck actually messaged me a threat, which I thought was pretty bizarre, that I've taken a screenshot and posted of before of Chuck threatening me. I questioned Scott on the fire of why did you testify the fire was this size? And then why did you say the fire was that size? And the thing that Scott had said to me was like everything that was done to Brendan in the interrogations was done to everybody in the family. Brian Dassey had said that to me too. They tried to get Brian Dassey to say stuff that wasn't true. Brian just doesn't have that low IQ like Brendan does. So he was having none of it, and they couldn't manipulate him. So that's what Scott had explained to me, is that it's just because of multiple interrogations on why the fire changed. But it didn't seem right to me. And then the thing that never made sense to me is, and Scott and Barb both tried to explain this to me, and I still don't understand it, is one of the interrogators, I can't remember if it was Wiegert or Fassbender, because I can't remember who is who. But one of them, Barb claims, told her that she can't live in that trailer anymore, that she had to move. And so she then sold the trailer to Chuck. And then something that Scott and Barb were pissed about is they said that Chuck took advantage of them and paid way less than they should have been paid for the trailer. And I didn't get all that. But then they had claimed bankruptcy and bought the new house all around the same period. So that never made sense to me. I never suspected Barb of anything. I always defended Barb. I felt like a mama bear when it came to Barb, just like Amy. And I have a son, and so my heart went out to Barb of her son being taken away from her, and I wanted to protect her. So I never suspected Barb of anything back when we were friends. And Scott, I even wrote an article defending Scott, because I felt so bad about people constantly accusing him. And at that time I was on, I was thinking it was Ryan Hilgas and Scott Blodorn. And we didn't have all this stuff that Zellner's uncovered now. So Scott always had attitude. He was always nice to me back when we were friends. Scott was always nice to me, but he was not nice to Amy. Amy saw him way more than I did. She dealt with him way more than I did. So I'm sure if I saw him as much as Amy did, I would have been treated like dog shit, just like she was. But he was always nice to me. And then things went bad. Okay, so scroll down. What's up with Carla and Rich being chummy? Seems strange. I've seen his posts on Facebook and Twitter. Rich Donovan is just like Lisa Zakowski is certifiable. And it's really funny. Here's my history with Richard Donovan. Back when Amy was the admin of Brendan's page, or no, when it first ended, I'm not keeping this all straight. But he made a post. There were pictures. This was after we left. There were pictures of Brendan's bedroom that TMZ published, and it was when those crazy people that call themselves Brendan Nation, which are just really creepy fangirls, they had bought Brendan a guitar, which it's just like, so you're buying him an instrument that he doesn't play and can't have to go sit at his house till whenever he gets out. Really weird. And Barb went out and used some of Brendan's money and bought a TV and a game system and all this stuff to set up Brendan's room to have it all ready for him for when he comes home. And then had taken pictures of this stuff. Well, Barb then sold those pictures to TMZ. Just like Barb sold pictures of when Amy and Barb got the matching tattoos, Barb sold those pictures to TMZ. Of the tattoo. So then Richard accused Amy, who now was no longer with the family or anything, of selling the pictures of Brendan's room. And it's like, First of all, how would she even have the picture? She doesn't even talk to Barb anymore. It had nothing to do with her. That was Dassy Nation, those crazy women buying that guitar. And so Richard accused Amy of, being trash and selling these pictures. And so Amy and I are obviously pretty tight because we're in the same boat of being beat up by the family and their fans. And I'm always somebody that, you come after somebody I care about, I am really nasty. So I went back at Donovan, and Amy and I had done Facebook Live because we used to do them regularly. I referred to him, I think I referred to him as a little bitch. And ever since then, oh my God, does that guy hate me. If you ever go to his Twitter or Facebook or whatever, he posts so much shit about me, and it's hysterical. But he used to be somebody who believed in the guy's innocence. And when he wasn't big and popular on the innocent side, he switched over to guilty. And so he hangs out with Kratz and his pig of a wife. And he thinks that makes him all cool. And he showed up at the most recent rally, and Carla posed for a picture with him with her arm wrapped around him and her head on his shoulder. And yeah, so I mean, if you're a true supporter, I don't know how you would support somebody who's going to be all chummy with somebody who says that Stephen and Brendan are guilty, and he hopes Stephen hangs himself in his cell. He has said horrible things about Dolores. Why would anybody say anything about Dolores? But Richard Donovan does. Stephen is disgusted that Carla would be with Richard Donovan, and that Carla would have her groups. Actually, there are guilters, not Richard Donovan, but other guilters are admins of those groups. So they are supposed to be groups that are supporting Stephen, which actually they never are. She always says, it's a family support page. So it supports everybody in the family. It doesn't support Stephen and Brendan. And it actually doesn't support everybody in the family. It's just to support Carla. And Carla will try and make it out like she's a good person and everybody's entitled to their view, and it's me just giving somebody a second chance. Well, think about that. Think about if somebody accused your family member of murder. You really want to hang out with them? Go have a drink with them? So Carla's a piece of shit. Who's Rich D? I hope I just explained that, Isaac. Jenny, I find it hilarious that a lot of the family groupies don't get along with the family anymore. And Jenny, I think that's why Barb just started a new group after Zellner's last filing came out. I believe that's because now people are starting to turn against her, and she has to start from square one and only have people in there that gives her money. Do people still come to the property and look around? I know after the rally that they had in June that people did, that they went there. I don't know. I know it was Carla kept being like she controls everything, and tried to tell the organizers of that rally what they can and can't do. But Carla has no say on what you can or can't do as a salvage yard. She, her dad is a part of the salvage yard, not her. And who else is a part of the salvage yard? Stephen. And Chaz and Sandra talk with Stephen. So if Stephen says that Sandra and Chaz can have people go to the salvage yard, people are going to the salvage yard. And it has nothing to do with Carla, but then she'll try and pretend after the fact that, oh, I did this for you. Look what I did. You're going to get to do this, when really it was Stephen's doing. Rich Donovan, big-time guilter that infiltrates the Facebook groups and is vile, but allowed to be on some groups. Yep, he's allowed to be in any group that Carla's in. Lana, do you think Teresa Hallbeck's brother is involved? He always gives me the creeps. I do think that Mike Hilgas was part of planting the RAV4 at the salvage yard. And I do believe that him and Scott and Ryan thought they were framing a guilty man. I believe that law enforcement led them to believe that because of Stephen's prior wrongful conviction and the case that was happening, that they told them it would be very hard to prove that it was Stephen. And so they got them to help plant the car there. And that's how Ryan Hilgas got her day planner, which would have been in her car. So I think they planted the car there. Louise, yes, I am Jax. For those that don't know, hi, Jax. Who's Richard? It was just explained above, Louise. Richard is somebody who used to think the guys were innocent and now thinks is guilty. Rhonda, Amy took the blame for that. I'm sure you're referring back to the whole TMZ picture thing. Yeah, they blamed Amy for it, and Amy's not on right now that I know of. So let me just speak about Amy for a minute. I'm going to talk behind Amy's back. Ready? Amy loves Barb. Amy loves Brendan. Barb actually, in just this last week, somebody contacted her and told her to contact Barb. And I hate when people manipulate Amy like that, because Amy really, really loves Barb. And she was really attached to Brendan because Amy's son, Jake, is very similar to Brendan. Next time we do a Facebook Live, I should hold up pictures and have a picture of Jake and a picture of Brendan. So you could see that those two boys, they could be brothers. And they have the same IQ. And they're both into video games. And so Amy really loves Brendan. And she still, I think to this day, would love and protect Barb if given the opportunity. So I really hate that this stuff has been done to Amy, because Amy truly was in this for the right reasons, and she just wanted to take care of Brendan and Barb. That's all she wanted to do. Oh God, I'm going to tear up now, so I'm going to stop talking about that. I don't know why I'm tearing up. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Jenny. I'm so real. Christy, Ryan talked about how long the grieving process was going to take before they even knew for sure that she was deceased. That always bothered me. Right. And that's why I do think that they were part of the RAV4 on planting the RAV4. And so that, because of all the stuff that Zellner has released, that's why I believe it is Scott and Bobby. But I was able to, at one point, I could make all the pieces fit for the killer being Scott and Ryan. And I also, I thought it was George Zipper, and so like my first time that I went up to the salvage yard, I even drove from the salvage yard to George Zipper's house and took pictures of George's house, and I had timed how long it took me to get from the salvage yard to the Zippers and all of that. So but because of everything that Zellner has now, that's why I am firmly now on it's Bobby and Scott either doing the killing together, or one did the killing and one just helped after the fact with the cover up. And I just think that Scott Blodorn and Ryan and Mike Hilgas planted the car. If this round of hearings get turned down again, is this the end of the road? No, Steven's still got a long road to go, that he can go. So yeah, this is nowhere near the end for him, because his case is still actually in Wisconsin, and they could take it to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and then they could also take it to the United States Supreme Court. Thank you, Chris, for being so transparent. And this is what I say all the time. And that's part of what this gossip group is for the people who go into Carla's groups or Barb's groups, or you're on Twitter and you see anything that gets posted or about Amy or I, ask me point blank. I say, I've got nothing to hide. I've done nothing wrong. Well, actually, I do wrong stuff all the time. Everybody does. I make mistakes, but I'll own them if I've fucked up. And sorry, I have bad language. So just ask me and I'll tell you the truth. What do you think about the photos of Ryan's hands with scratches on the back of them? Look like defense wounds. Chris, and I thought that, now back when I was on where I thought Ryan was the killer, but now what I think it is because the RAV4 had the wood and the branches and stuff that was put on the car all weird, and that was done at night. I think he got scratched doing that. That's what I think Ryan's scratches are from. While Bobby's scratches, claiming it's from a puppy, no, I believe those scratches are from Teresa. So when Zellner proves these creeps set him up and the real murderers are brought forward, will they go to prison? Yes, there's no limitation on murder. So if she gets who really did it, they can go to prison. I agree with you. I think they were involved in planting evidence against guilty man, but I think Bobby and Scott are the guilty party. Yep. Bobby had scratches on his back. That proves lots, right? I caught up with the questions. What else is there? Oh my God, it's been an hour already. We have 30 minutes to go. I typically do these for 90 minutes. So you got a half hour to get in any more questions or topics you want discussed. So, and then Stephen Avery Project, the page, the public page, we keep that just about Stephen and his case. We don't get into the drama on there. We keep it just about Stephen. That's what Stephen wants. He refers to our Facebook page as his website. So that doesn't get into any of the drama. And then we started the Stephen Avery Project closed group. That's where we can get more into the case, because it's easier to discuss things in a group than it is in a page. Because on a page, if you're not an admin or a moderator of a page, if you make a post, a fresh post, it goes to the right side of the screen. And so people don't necessarily see that or get, and it doesn't get bumped up. As opposed to a group, it stays right in the middle. So you can, so it's easier to have a conversation in there. And then I also will discuss in there Kathleen Zellner's other cases that I advocate for. So Kent and Melissa. And then this MAM gossip group is where we're going off of what we think about the case and where we get into the dirt about the family. We've had a couple of things may have been talked about, but the phone call from Stephen to Barb just ticked me off. I got bumped back up again. You would think that would speak volumes as to who is guilty. That call, because Barb obviously has had thousands of calls from prison. So when you get the call, it will say, this is a call from an inmate at the prison. And do you accept this call? Press 1 if you accept this call. And then like halfway in between your call, a recording will come on and say that this call is being recorded. So I cannot believe Barb and Scott would behave that way when they know the call's being recorded. And you even heard Stephen during that call say to her, you want me to say that when this is being recorded? You want to talk about that when this is being recorded? It just, the way they treated Stephen, horrible. That just, oh, that call. Kayla seems like she is a true supporter of the guys. Kayla. So Kayla, for those that don't know, Kayla is Earl Avery's daughter, so Stephen's niece, Brendan's cousin. She is the one that went to the school and told the police that Brendan was losing weight and upset and all that stuff. I used to have a good relationship with Kayla. I used to defend Kayla because she, like many in the family, again, the low IQ, and she was just a little kid at the time of all of this. And actually, the first time I went to the salvage yard, I met Barb and Scott and Carla and her husband Tracy and Chuck, and they all hate Kayla. Went on and on and on about she's a bitch and she just did that to get attention, and I cringed at all of that because I again just going, she's just a young girl. I mean, I didn't know the girl at all at that time, but it made me uncomfortable the way they were talking to her. Then I used to chat on Facebook Messenger with Kayla all the time. Kayla and I have some things in common, and would discuss those. And I know Kayla would tell me her best friend is her grandma, which is Dolores. And she would tell me things about, she told me Dolores was really upset because, or miserable because she doesn't have air conditioning. All these years in that trailer, she doesn't have any air conditioning. And of course she's older now and, not in the best of health. And so I had said to Kayla, oh my God, I have an air conditioning unit that's just sitting here that I don't do anything with. I'm going to come up there and I'm going to put this air conditioner in your grandma's trailer. And Kayla had said at that point, she had been saving her money and she was going to buy an air conditioner and give it to her grandma. And I'm like, you keep your money. I have an air conditioner that I don't use. And she had told me that she had told Chuck and Earl a whole bunch of times of, grandma needs an air conditioner. She can't be in this heat. Nobody would do anything for her. But then apparently after it was said that I was bringing an air conditioner up there, they then bought Dolores an air conditioner. So I didn't do it. I made one of the shirts for Kayla, and I've never met Kayla in person, but when I had gone to Barb's house for that Facebook Live thing, I brought a shirt for Kayla, and they were kind of pissy that they didn't want to give that bitch a shirt and, all that stuff. And then when the fallout happened between myself and Barb and Carla, they then brought Kayla back into the fold. And so then Kayla messaged me some really nasty stuff of, you better leave my family alone, and all this stuff. It's pretty pathetic. And so I just let that go. Kayla told me she had a whole lot of guilt for what she did to Brendan. I had said, have you ever apologized to him? And she said no. She had never gone to see him at that time. She wouldn't even write him a letter. So in all the years he had been in prison prior to making a murderer, she had nothing to do with Brendan whatsoever. And but I think now she's back in and has gone to see him. So I think she's taken Dolores there. But Kayla hates me too. Everybody in the family hates me except the parents. Stories by all of them have changed so much, you would think that would speak volumes as to who is guilty. Right. It's the thing that I've said. I've done a couple of Facebook Lives recently on the Stephen Avery Project group where I say that the truth is easy to remember. Your story stays the same because it's what actually happened. lies are hard to remember, and that's why it changes all the time, because you can't remember what you said. How many would have to be in these conspiracies? Someone killed her, someone else hid the car, and someone else planted blood. It just seems a bit much. I agree. So I know in Zellner's latest filing, it did talk about Bobby being the possible person to have planted the blood in the RAV4, Stephen's blood there. And I understand why that's being said. I've always, not always, in thinking that it's Scott and Bobby, my thought has been that they then left, well, now the RAV4 was left at that dam. But I think that Teresa's remains were left in the quarry behind there. And so I believe the stuff planted at Stevens in the burn barrels and the key and all that stuff, I believe that was all law enforcement. How do we know Barb is help covering up as opposed to just being unaware of what really happened? She just seems not all there as opposed to knowing. Thoughts? I agree, Brian. I give Barb the benefit of the doubt. I don't think she knew when it happened. I don't even necessarily think she knew during the trial. I don't think, even if Scott and Bobby are the guilty ones, I don't think she knows what happened. But she knows enough that something's going on that she wanted that computer wiped. So, and, you know, she had been arrested she had Scott's pot, and she was going to get, it was a lot of pot. So I think that was used against her, that the police used that against her. And I think the porn that Bobby had on his computer was used against him. So I think Barb is involved after the fact. But I do think she might have believed that if she did know back then that Bobby and Scott were involved, I do think she thought Brendan would be the best sacrificial lamb, being 16, that she thought he would only serve 2 years and get out, as opposed to Bobby was 19 and would be tried as an adult. I don't think she ever thought for a minute that Brendan could be tried as an adult. And so I think that's why when the verdict came in, she was so upset, because I think the state had convinced her that they were going to get Stephen for this. And, you know, Brendan had to, you know, somebody else had to go with that, and that Brendan was the easiest. So, so maybe I'm giving Barb too much leeway. I don't know. Nobody has internet access, Isaac. Stephen and Brendan do not have access to the internet to come on Facebook or anything like that. They do have supporters who will send them stuff from the internet. Stephen has never seen Making a Murderer, but a supporter actually transcribed the entire thing and sent it to him, so he's been able to read it. So he knows what's in Making a Murderer, even though he's never seen it. I have, like, for Brendan, I did, back when I was part of his page, we did something where we had supporters do something for Brendan, and I printed them all up, and I mailed them to Brendan, and then Brendan wrote notes on all the pictures now of what the people had made. And then he got to pick which one he liked the best. And then that person got a special prize. So, and then I talked to Stephen about messages that get sent to Stephen Avery Project. And then I also have the website, StephenAveryProject.org or whatever it is. So I get emails sent through that. So I'll discuss with him what comes in there and posts that get made. But they don't have any access to the internet to look at this stuff themselves. Somewhere I read that Kratz reached out to Stephen to write a book. I recently read his book. Oops, now it just got booted back up. I totally believe Stephen is innocent, but I had to read the book. In the book, Kratz claims it was Stephen who reached out to him, which is the truth. Kratz reached out to Stephen, and Zellner has the proof of that. So, and then Stephen, I don't know. I'm going to leave that one alone because I'm not sure if I can say that. But just know that was Kratz. Kratz's doing. So they should put out a director's cut of the show. I'm sure there's hours and hours of great stuff we haven't seen. Oh, absolutely. And that's why I hate too when guilters will say that we're just convinced by this edited show and that they didn't show both sides. Well, first of all, the documentarians did reach out to all sides and ask them to be a part of it. They were told no. So they can only cover what they can cover. But yes, there is a whole lot more that I'm sure they could put together. And with all this stuff they're doing now. Because I know Amy has done interviews with the documentarians. We don't know whether or not she'll be in the second season. And I've talked to the documentarians once. But yeah, there's so much they could put out there. I believe I read on the page, Brendan's lawyers told him about the latest filing. How did he take it about his mother? We don't know if that's true. Carla posted that the lawyers told Brendan. And Carla could tell me the sky is blue and I'm still going to look out the window and look. So we don't know. So basically, unless you hear it from Drizzen or Knight Rider, you don't know if it's true. But what I do know is the history of the case is anytime Brendan should be told something, Barb typically goes out of town. I miss Flat Brendan. Oh, Jenny. So Flat Brendan, yes, he was something that a really good supporter of Brendan's, a true supporter. She donated a lot of money to Brendan. I would be asked by the family that they needed money for such and such. And I would ask that supporter and she would send that money to Barb. No questions asked. Really good supporter. She came up with this idea of Flat Brendan. And that's a take on Flat Stanley. I don't know if you've heard of Flat Stanley. That's a project that kids do in school where it's this paper Stanley guy and you mail it to places around the world or you give it to somebody who's going on vacation because you want pictures of this Flat Stanley at all these different places. And it's kind of cool to see where Stanley travels. And so she came up with the idea of doing a Flat Brendan so Brendan could see places that his supporters are at, and so then we would mail this Flat Brendan to all these different places and take the pictures and all that. That idea came up after we had were no longer with Barb. So it was something Amy and I were doing with we have a group called Wrongfully Abused. And so we were doing it there, I believe. And Barb and her people made it out like this was offensive. And we were doing this to hurt Brendan, to show Brendan all the places he can't be. So they took such a sweet, innocent gesture and made it into something ugly, like we were being these evil people. That was so sad. But it was, again, anything to demonize Amy and I. that we were doing something because we're just horrible people and not because we care about Brendan. Tanya, didn't Bobby tell Brian it couldn't have been Stephen because he saw Teresa leave? Yes. And he said that way back when, and he said that when he just talked to Kathleen in November. Why defend someone if you are trying to frame them? I believe Stephen is innocent because he was just so calm on recorded call with Jody that day, and the fact that there was no trace of Teresa in his home. Right. And I said that to Stephen, because I've been rewatching Making a Murderer recently. And so when I talked to Stephen this past weekend, I brought it up to him because it was something I had just seen that episode of the 2 times that Jody called. And I'm like, that's just so ridiculous that you're supposed to believe that Stephen is in the process of doing whatever with Teresa, so was she tied up at that time? Is he mid-rape? What is he doing? And then he can be talking to Jody on the phone, talking about getting engaged and proposing and being romantic and all that. He would have been short-tempered with her, wanting to get off the phone, because she's got murdering to do in the back room, so that whole thing is ridiculous. And yeah, so Bobby absolutely told Brian that he saw Teresa leave, because at that point when it first happened, it was trying to make it out like, yeah, she left here because nothing had been found yet at that point. So, oh, she left here, trying to turn suspicion away elsewhere. Sean, if you could ask anyone one question and be guaranteed a truthful answer, who would it be and what would you ask? Holy shit, that's a tough one. Only one question and guaranteed a truthful answer. Then I guess you would have to go to Bobby. And the question would be, what did you do to Teresa Halbach? And that should unravel everything, right? That would be the one catch-all, because I don't know. Bobby's involved, period. Either murder or murdered with Scott. Scott either helped Bobby with the murder, in my opinion, or just helped with the cover-up. So Bobby's there from minute one. So Bobby would be who you have to question. I don't need to ask Stephen a single question. I believe in his innocence. Same with Brendan, so, and I don't know for sure what Barb knows, and what her involvement is. So Bobby is ground zero, patient zero, whatever you want to call it. What's your opinion on Brad? Brad Dassey, for those that don't know, is Brendan's half-brother. They share a father, Pete Dassey. Brad is no relation to Barb, other than Pete was married to Barb, so she was his stepmother at one point. Brad, I do think he cares about his brother, Brendan. He has at one point said Brendan was guilty. So he does flip and flap. I think he's a simple guy. I don't think his IQ is as low as the others. But he's also not a brainiac. I do not believe he's trying to get rich off of Brendan. He did that one dumb rap song that is available for free. He's not making any money off of that. And the thing you have to say for Brad is he went to the police back in 2005 when this all happened, right? It's 2005. I'm really bad with numbers. So he didn't just come forward after Making a Murderer. He came forward back then to say that Barb asked him about wiping the computer. So That's true, and he had nothing to gain for saying that back then. So, I think it's horrible how badly he's treated by Carla and Barb and the lot of them. Him and Scott are into killing animals and hunting, experienced in cutting up deer. Yeah, Scott and Bobby actually belong to the same hunting club, and so does one of the judges. Jerome Fox, Judge Fox, was also, when he was an attorney, he represented Scott in a previous case. So there's so much intersectionality, or whatever you want to call it, in that whole stuff. One more. How is family treating Blaine now since he said he saw Bobby driving a bluish green vehicle? I don't know. Because I don't have a relationship with the family. Stephen told me over the weekend that Blaine wants nothing to do with his mother. I don't know if that's true. Did Steve call Auto Trader and say she didn't show up? That I don't know. I know that's been said, but before. But in Zellner's last filing, it was that, stop. Now my dog's begging me to go outside. Hey, no. Sorry. She's putting her big giant paw in my lap. Stephen had called Teresa back and star 67'd it. It's after when she gave him the Auto Trader magazine, and he walked into his house to put the magazine in there, and then he saw in the magazine, which Stephen calls a book, that they sell end loaders, right? And I talked about this on the Stephen Avery Project Facebook Live. I believe it's an end loader is what it's called. And so he had an end loader that he wanted to sell. So then he called her to ask if she had. His plan was to call her and ask her if she had time to come back to take a picture of the end loader. But he star 67'd it because if he didn't catch her, it was not a big deal. I believe that's the way that went. So, but I don't know. I know that's been said at some point that he called the Auto Trader to say she didn't show up, but she did show up. So, I don't know. On that, I just know in the latest filing about he wanted to sell the end loader. 7 minutes. And Patty. See, there you go. Chris, is a bit odd of him to star 67. Well, another thing that was said about that is Stephen was obviously well known, so he liked to block his number. Yeah. And I know people who used to do that, that star 67 thing, that were just like paranoid. But I don't know. But I get what you're saying, Chris, on, that seeming odd to dial the star 67. But the thing that I've always said is, what is Stephen's motive? Nobody's been able to give me a reasonable motive for why would Stephen kill Teresa. All right. Because he had a girlfriend. Now, yes, Jody was currently in prison, or jail. He had a girlfriend. So if somebody's going to try and use the sexual deviant and he's not getting any, so he just couldn't help himself and had to, rape this girl, that it just makes no sense because he's got a girlfriend. He was about to come into $425,000 tax-free from his wrongful conviction. That that is a separate amount of money that he was getting from the $36 million lawsuit that was currently in depositions. So he had money coming. He had for sure money, that $400,000 that was coming in. More money than I'm sure he had ever seen in his life, and a whole bunch of money on the line coming in. There's no motive. So, and if you're going to try and say Stephen's motive is sexual in nature, and then you had Bobby's computer with everything that was on that computer, well, then Stephen deserves a new trial because, and they should be able to introduce Bobby as a suspect. So, yeah. In your opinion, how many people know who killed Teresa? Scott and Bobby know for sure, because I'm believing Scott and Bobby are involved. I don't know if Barb knows. And the only other person I would think that might know is Mike Osmondson, Bobby's hunting buddy. So I don't think anybody else knows. May have been a habit, but even if it wasn't, that small detail doesn't make me suspicious. Oh, talking about the Star 67. Yeah, I agree, Lee. It would be more suspicious to me, you're right, if this was the only time he had Star 67. But when they go through stuff, he did it with other people, not just with Teresa. So, there's a pattern there. Jenny, this case just breaks my heart. Please tell Stephen he has people who truly believes in his innocence and support him. I do. Every time I talk to him on the phone, I always tell him, you've got a lot of great supporters out there. And he knows because he gets a lot of mail. And he does talk to a bunch of people regularly. And I always ask him, what does he want posted on Stephen Avery Project to send out to his supporters? Sean, you always have the best questions. Where's Andy Colburn's cell phone records from November 3rd? Like to see what towers he hit off of when calling in the plates. That, yes, because I believe, because we know now from Zellner's filing that 2 people saw the RAV4 at that dam at the turnaround, and that one did report it to the police and to Scott Toddick. So I believe that Colburn is the one that went to that scene, and that's when that call came in. He was calling in the RAV4 because he was looking at it at the dam, 100%. And then they moved it to the salvage yard going through the quarry. He may have used Star 67 because he didn't want his number out there. I know I get unwanted calls daily. Absolutely, Georgia. All right, we're at 6:30. Anybody else have something before we wrap it up here? I'm glad this time my sound worked and everybody's able to hear me all right. And I may do this again. I've been doing it in the Stephen Avery Project group, but we don't really get into the gossip there because, all right, the Stephen Avery Project page is the biggest Making a Murder page. We've got over 131,000 people there, but most people who follow the case don't know anything about the family drama. They don't know who Carl is. They don't know anything, and they don't care. So I, don't want to then constantly bring this stuff up there when those people don't care about all this bullshit. They just want to know about the case. So I may do more of these Facebook Lives in the gossip group where it's more open for, to ask the questions that other people that aren't as invested in the case want to hear about. Tanya says, do you feel like Brendan knows, did, overheard something, or was confession completely coerced? I believe Brendan was completely coerced. He's a sweet boy. And now I'm going to tear up again. It's clear when you watch the interrogation videos that he had no clue what they wanted him to say. You know, what did you do, Brendan? What did you do? Punched her? Cut her hair? Cut her throat? Okay, Brendan, I'm just going to ask, who shot her in the head? Steven? Why didn't you tell us this? Because I didn't think of it. Brendan's not capable of lying like that. That he's going to be able to rape, murder, and cover up this crime and live with himself. You would be able to tell that he's lying. This kid is completely innocent, and he's been failed by everyone. He was failed by his mother. I do cut Barb slack on this because she also isn't the smartest person, and she was being manipulated by law enforcement. But the fact is, she let Brendan go to the wolves. She let him there. She sat outside the room while they were interrogating him. She let that kid sit in there by himself. The cops used stuff against her, her pot arrest. So she was thinking of herself and not Brendan. And so she's been able to go on and live her life and marry Scott and buy this home and have a vacation home, because they have a cabin up in Crivets too. So they have 2 homes. Do you have 2 homes? Well, so most people don't have 2 homes. And yet she's asking, supporters for money. So Brendan's had his entire life stolen from him. He was 16 years old, and his life now is frozen in time, that he hasn't been able to be a free man. It breaks my heart. Brendan's 100% innocent. And it hurts that his mother continues to manipulate him. She keeps his father, Pete Tassi, on a leash, and Pete has to do what Barb wants, or she's going to cut him off from Brendan, because Brendan loves his mom and believes his mom is, his only true support. And then Barb has Brendan surrounded by not supporters, but fans. Rebecca Snodgrass constantly referring to him as Sweetie and making these memes with Brendan's head in the clouds and all these weirdo creepy. It's creepy. I love Brendan like everybody else, but that's creepy, and so Brendan doesn't have a real true support system around him. It's sad. All right. No other questions come in right now. We're at 6:34 my time. All right. I guess I'm going to sign off then. I'll decide if I'll do another one of these next week. I'm supposed to be doing one, Paul Kaluzinski. He's a friend of mine. It's his daughter, Melissa, who is another client of Kathleen Zellner's, who her story is very similar to Brendan's. She's low IQ, and she was coerced into confessing into murdering a child at a daycare that she worked at. If you're interested in learning about that case, it has been covered by 48 Hours. So the 2 episodes are called Blaming Melissa and Fight for Melissa. And Kathleen just filed for Melissa on Monday, the latest filing. And so her dad wants to talk about the latest filing, and then he also wants to expose stuff because Melissa's case, like Stephen and Brendan, is corrupt law enforcement are covering things up and framing this poor girl. She went into prison when she was 22. He had wanted to do a Facebook Live earlier this week, and then that got canceled, and then he had wanted to do it today, and his basement flooded today, so now he's talking about maybe next week. So I may be doing that Facebook Live, and I want Paul actually, excuse me, to do a Facebook Live with me on here for Stephen Avery Project too, because obviously his daughter being in the system for so long, he knows the legal system way better than I do. So he could fill in those holes. You know, you could ask more questions along those lines and Paul can answer them for you. Tanya says it is heartbreaking and the wrong people imprisoned is justice for no one. Brendan seems lost in a sea of sharks. I also can't believe they took him and Barb to a hotel and interviewed with no recording. Yeah, I know. There's so much. All right, so I'm going to sign off. Thank you, everybody who came on and asked questions. And feel free in the Making a Murder Gossip group. You can, post anything you want in there. You can ask Amy or I questions. We'll answer. Also, the moderators from Stephen Avery Project, they are way better versed in the case than I. So they're always available to answer questions. So, and then we opened back up Justice for Brendan Facebook page that we started for Brendan a while ago, but then we haven't really done anything with. But that's where we're discussing only Brendan. So, we discuss only Stephen on Stephen Avery Project page, and then we're discussing only Brendan in Justice for Brendan. So, all right. And hi and bye to Holly, who just posted. And I am out. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.